Hello everyone, this time I shall talk about Special Economic Zones of China. Special Economic Zones, SEZs in Chinese mainland, are granted more free market-oriented economic policies and flexible governmental measures by the government of China, compared to the planned economy elsewhere. This allows SEZs to utilize economic management, which is more attractive to foreign and domestic businesses. In SEZs, foreign and domestic trade and investment are conducted with tax and businesses incentives to attract foreign investment and technology. 1. History. In the late 1970s, and especially at the third plenary session of the 11th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China in December 1978, the Chinese government initiated its policy of reform and opening up. As a response to some economic policy that slowed to produce economic growth, which would allow China to be competitive against not only industrialized nations of the West, but also rising regional powers, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Officials in Guangdong province, led by Provincial Party Secretary Xi Zhongxun, seized the initiative, starting with an investment project in Shekou, prepared by Yun Geng on behalf of the Hong Kong-based China Merchants Steam Navigation Company. This project, initially a ship-breaking facility, was approved by Li Xiannian on January 31, 1979. In April 1979, Xi Zhongxun and other Guangdong officials presented in Beijing a proposal to give broader flexibility to the coastal provinces of Guangdong and Fujian to attract foreign investment, with additional exemptions in 4 cities, namely Shenzhen in the Pearl River Delta region, Zhuhai and Shantou in Guangdong and Xiamen in Fujian province. For this, Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping coined the name special zones with reference to the designation of another border region. The proposal was approved on July the 15th, and the 4 special zones were officially established on October the 26th, 1979. In 1984, China further opened 14 coastal cities to overseas investment: Dalian, Qinhuangdao, Tianjin, Yantai, Qingdao, Lianyungang, Nantong, Shanghai, Ningbo, Wenzhou, Fuzhou, Guangzhou, Zhanjiang, and Beihai. Since 1988, Chinese mainland's opening to the outside world has been extended to its border areas along the Yangtze River and inland areas. First, the state decided to turn Hainan Island into Chinese mainland's biggest special economic zone. Approved by the first session of the 7th NPC in 1988, and to enlarge the other 4 special economic zones. Shortly afterwards, the State Council expanded the open coastal areas, extending into an open coastal belt the open economic zones of the Yangtze River Delta, Pearl River Delta, Xiamen, Zhangzhou, Quanzhou Triangle in South Fujian, the Shandong Peninsula, the Liaoning Peninsula in Liaoning Province, Hebei Province, and Guangxi Autonomous Region. In June 1990, the Chinese government opened the Pudong New Area in Shanghai to overseas investment, and additional cities along the Yangtze River Valley, with Shanghai Pudong New Area as its dragonhead. Since 1992, the State Council has opened a number of border cities, and in addition, opened all the capital cities of inland provinces and autonomous regions. In addition, 15 free trade zones, 32 state-level economic and technological development zones, and 53 new and high-tech industrial development zones have been established in large and medium-sized cities. As these open areas adopt different preferential policies, they play the dual roles of windows in developing the foreign-oriented economy, generating foreign exchanges through exporting products and importing advanced technologies, and of radiators in accelerating inland economic development. Primarily geared to exporting processed goods, the 5 SEZs are foreign trade-oriented areas, which integrate science, industry, and innovation with trade. Foreign firms benefit from preferential policies such as low tax rates, reduced regulations, and special managerial systems. In 1999, Shenzhen's new and high-tech industry reached an output value of high-tech products of 81.98 billion yuan, making up 40.5% of the city's total industrial output value. Since its founding in 1992, the Shanghai Pudong New Area has made progress in both absorbing foreign capital and accelerating the economic development of the Yangtze River Valley. The government has extended special preferential policies to the Pudong New Area that are not currently enjoyed by the special economic zones. For instance, in addition to the preferential policies of reducing or eliminating customs duties and income tax common to the economic and technological development zones, the state also permits the zone to allow foreign business people to open financial institutions and run tertiary industries. In addition, the state has given Shanghai permission to set up a stock exchange, expand its examination and approval authority over investments, and allow foreign-funded banks to engage in RMB business. In 1999, the GDP of Pudong New Area came to 80 billion yuan, and the total industrial output value 145 billion yuan. In May 2010, the PRC designated the city of Kashgar in Xinjiang a SEZ. Kashgar's annual growth rate was 17.4% in 2009, and Kashgar's designation has since increased tourism and real estate prices in the city. Kashgar is close to China's border with the independent states of former Soviet Central Asia, and the SEZ seeks to capitalize on international trade links between China and those states. 2. List of the SEZs and open coastal cities. As part of its economic reforms and policy of opening to the world, between 1980 and 1984, China established special economic zones, SEZs, in Shantou, Shenzhen, and Zhuhai in Guangdong Province, and Xiamen in Fujian Province, as well as designating the entire inland province of Hainan as a special economic zone. In 1984, China opened 14 other coastal cities to overseas investment, listed from north to south: 大连、秦皇岛、天津、烟台、青岛、连云港、南通、上海、宁波、温州、福州、广州、湛江, and Beihai. These coastal cities have been designated as the open coastal cities. Then, beginning in 1985, the central government expanded the coastal area by establishing the following open economic zones listed from north to south. The Liaodong Peninsula, Hebei Province, which surrounds Beijing and Tianjin. The Shandong Peninsula, Yangtze River Delta, Xiamen, Zhangzhou, Quanzhou Triangle in southern Fujian Province. The Pearl River Delta, the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. In 1990, the Chinese government decided to open the Pudong New Area in Shanghai to overseas investment, as well as more cities in the Yangtze River Valley. Since 1992, the State Council has opened a number of border cities and all the capital cities of inland provinces and autonomous regions. In addition, 15 free trade zones, 32 state-level economic and technological development zones, and 53 new and high-tech industrial development zones have been established in large and medium-sized cities. As a result, a multi-level, diversified pattern of opening and integrating coastal areas with river, border, and inland area has been formed in China. 3. Economic policies of the SEZs. Special tax incentives for foreign investments in SEZs. Greater independence from the central government on international trade activities. Economic characteristics are represented as 4 principles. 1. Construction primarily relies on attracting and utilizing foreign capital. 2. Primary economic forms are Sino-foreign joint ventures and partnerships, as well as wholly foreign-owned enterprises. 3. Products are primarily export-oriented. 4. Economic activities are primarily driven by market forces. Development. In the late 1970s, China, still a developing country. At that time, the new ideas of opening the country to the global contexts and influences and other new ideas were emerging as well. Deng Xiaoping, the chief architect of China's open policy and economic reforms, launched in 1978, outlined a fundamentally new approach to gradual social change. Although Deng's recommendation by all accounts applied to no specific context, it nonetheless was embodied in a series of reforms and policy initiatives. In November 1978, farmers in Xiaogang, a small village in Anhui Province, pioneered the contract responsibility system, which was subsequently recognized as the initial for reaching and ultimate success rural reforms in China. The following month, the third plenum of the 11th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party adopted the open door policy, and in July 1979, the party's Central Committee decided that Guangdong and Fujian provinces should take the lead in conducting economic exchanges with other countries and implementing special policies and flexible measures. By August 1980, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Shantou within Guangdong Province were designated as Special Economic Zones, SEZs, followed by Xiamen in Fujian Province in October 1980. The term Special Economic Zone was selected after considerable semantic discussion and intellectual debate, with SEZs being conceptualized as a complex of related economic activities and services rather than unifunctional entities. SEZs in China that differed from export processing zones and similar special areas in Asia by being more functionally diverse and covering much larger land areas. Roles of SEZs. SEZs are listed separately in the national planning, including financial planning, and have province-level authority on economic administration. SEZs, local Congress, and government have authority to legislate. The role of special economic zones is important in liberalizing the Chinese economies and their impact on economic growth. The policy change to a more liberalized economy is identified using SEZ variables as instrumental variables. The results indicate that export and FDI growth have positive and statistically significant effects on economic growth in these countries. This presence of SEZs increases regional growth, but increasing the number of SEZs has negligible effect on growth. The key to faster economic growth appears to be a greater pace of liberalization. The numerous special economic zones and industrial clusters that emerged after the country's reforms are without doubt two important engines of China's remarkable development. Achievement. The SEZs were established primarily to attract foreign direct investment, FDI, expand China's exports, and accelerate the infusion of new technology. The four SEZs established in 1980 were quite similar in that they comprise large areas within which the object were to facilitate broadly based, comprehensive development. They were encouraged to pursue pragmatic and open economic policies, serving as a testing ground for innovative policies that, if proven effective, would be implemented more widely across the country. The emphasis on forward linkage with the world, especially through liberalization of foreign investment and trade relations with capitalist countries, and backward linkages with different parts of China, was very much the rationale for their establishment. The SEZs were deliberately located far from the central cities, minimizing potential risks should any problems be generated during their functioning. More specifically, the original four zones were sited in coastal areas of Guangdong and Fujian that had a long history of contact with the outside world throughout migration, and at the same time were near Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. The choice of Shenzhen was especially strategic because it is situated across a narrow river from Hong Kong, the key area from which China was to learn capitalist modes of economic growth and modern methods of managing a bustling metropolis. Moreover, at the time of its designation as an SEZ, Shenzhen was a small fishing village of 30,000 population, encompassing no more than 3 kilograms of dilapidated buildings, lacking even a traffic light. And in fact, Shenzhen was the most special of the four SEZs, with the greatest freedom to explore innovation. As China has just reopened to foreign trade and investment, the SEZs had an almost immediate impact. In 1981, the 4 zones accounted for 59.8% of total FDI in China, with Shenzhen accounting for the lion's share at 50.6%, and the other 3 roughly 3% each. 3 years later, the 4 SEZs still accounted for 26% of China's total FDI. By the end of 1985, realized FDI in the 4 zones totaled $1.17 billion, or about 20% of the national total. In this early period, policymakers were concerned that the proportion of the zone's industrial products destined for export tended to be low and were accompanied by an active foreign currency balance. During the formative years of SEZs, they hosted more than half of the total number of equity joint venture projects established in China, with the bulk of the investment originating in Hong Kong and Macau. Despite the emphasis on FDI, domestic capital investment in the zones, especially that related to infrastructure provision and domestically linked enterprises, far exceeded the foreign investment attracted to the zones. From the upside, the combination of the favorable policies and right mix of production factor in the SEZs resulted in high rates of economic growth, unprecedented in China. Conditions were particularly favorable for Shenzhen, whose leaders pioneered new policies and measures supporting a sustained period of spectacular growth. There was no shortage of funds either domestically or from abroad. An almost inexhaustible supply of cheap labor from rural China, and constant drive to scale up production through technological innovation. As a result, against a national average annual GDP growth of roughly 10% per year in 1980 to 1984, Shenzhen grew a phenomenal 58% annual rate, followed by Zhuhai 32%, Shantou 9%, and Xiamen 13%. Over the same period, Shenzhen's economy expanded 6-fold, as opposed to 1.5 times for China as a whole, 3 times for Zhuhai, 1.4 for Shantou, and 1.6 for Xiamen. By 1986, Shenzhen had already developed rudimentary markets in capital, labor, land, technology, communication, and other factors of production. By 1984, when the early success of the SEZs had been confirmed, China resolved to open its economy further by extending similar favorable policies to 14 coastal open cities, and in the following year to cities in the Pearl River Delta, the Yangtze River Delta, and the Min Delta in Fujian. And as noted above, in 1988, a 5th Hainan Special Economic Zone was established. Pudong New District in Shanghai was established in 1990, further opening areas along the Yangtze River to trade and investment. By 1992, the concept of openness was extended further to new cities in China's border areas and to all capitals of provinces and autonomous regions in the interior. Thus, by the latter year, when Deng Xiaoping undertook his historic and crucial southern tour, reaffirming China's open policy, the mission that had started with the creation of SEZs had in many respects been accomplished. The special economic zones and related areas by that time was no longer so special. Each of the 5 zones was assigned a specific role that has performed with a greater or lesser degree of effectiveness. By 1994, after the special policies pioneered in the ICZs had been extended to many parts of China, the country began to undertake nationwide reforms in tax remission, foreign exchange control, and foreign trade regulation. In particular, one of the factors facilitating rapid growth in China involved localizing the allocation of property rights, helping to coordinate more closely the actions of local governments and local economic actors. The process of innovation diffusion outward from ICZs to China more broadly has been generalized as a series of stages, experimentation, propagation, and harmonization, the latter referring to the co-license of national and ICZ growth rates over time, a narrowing that has been empirically validated by a comparison of such rates over different time periods between 1980 and 2004. Thank you for watching.